Hello, everybody. Welcome to this broadcast powered by Whitebirdtrails. And today we have a very special guest with us, Ratna Pathak Shah, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking the time out and doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with something that I have watched very, very recently of yours, and that is the segment called Chand Mubarak from the Amazon anthology series Unpaused. That happens to be the last segment, and for me, that worked the best of the lot. Probably it has to do with the fact that it's also more universal and maybe not a sci-fi thing. It's happening right now, and we all experienced it. Whether we were in the middle of Eid, whether we were in the middle of other events, we all lived through it. And so it was very, very relatable to go through that motion and how people were going through that sort of a situation. So why don't you tell a little about that? How did that happen? What was it like to develop that character and your chemistry with that young actor?
So it was a great pleasure, first of all, to get work after about 6 or 7 months of absolutely nothing, sitting at home, trying very hard to keep ourselves busy, doing poems and short stories online. So this was work, and it was paying work after a very long time. So it was very welcome. And then I read the script, and I thought it was very, very charming. It really captured what I had been going through in during the lockdown. And as it happened, soon after Unpaused was released, uh, things had opened up. There were auto rickshaws on the road, and I'd gone. We had a show in Prithvi, and I had to come back home, and there was no car available. So I took an auto rickshaw, and that was the first time in many months that I actually took an auto rickshaw. And I have to say, I felt exactly like my character in in
Chan
this
Mubarak.
in Chand Mubarak. And it just has been working on all of us in this strange way. Walking past people on the road when you are out for your evening walk, that suspicious little shifting away कि कहीं हाथ न लग जाए, कहीं उसकी सांस न लग जाए, sort of reacting to people depending on how they were dressed. All the unpleasant things that we managed to keep underneath the surface under normal circumstances suddenly got blown away. And there we were, naked and paused. So that sense, I think the film captured very simply and in a very, very effective story. That was what was important. That the two characters were interesting, they were interesting contrasts, and also they happened to be a very nice resolution at the end of the story. So that's why it works so nicely. And as far as my preparation for the story goes, um, I don't know what what other preparation one could have asked for, except what had been happening to all of us. We were living that. It's very, very rare that you get a chance to play a character who's actually a contemporary, matlab abhi ki baat. So that was very exciting. And I fell into the character very easily. I didn't have to try very hard, either inside of me. My automatic reflexes became one of trying to protect myself and trying to keep myself away from this unknown danger around me. So that worked very nicely. And then Shardul, who I personally don't know at all. I've seen him in Ibaleu, of course, and liked him very much, but I'd never met him. So, for all practical purposes, he was a rickshawala for me.
Wow.
And and we both managed to connect immediately. He had the right amount of respect for me as a senior actor, and along with that, he had a nice little cockiness. He was sure
Uh-huh.
of what he was doing.
Uh-huh.
He had a little ada about him, which is exactly what the character needs. So I think we cottoned on immediately. We got onto the wavelength very quickly. And the scenes were very, very difficult to shoot. One, because
Mhm.
all of us were working again after such a long time. Two, because
Hmm.
we all had to sanitize all the time. You couldn't
Hmm.
sit here. Before you sat down, somebody had to come and spray the thing. Before anyone, before you could go towards the shot, way had to be made for you. Sab hat jao, ja rahe hain log. That kind of thing. It was very disconcerting. And then, on top of it all, unplanned, of course, the rain came down. The 3 nights that we shot, every night the damn thing rained and rained and rained. And I mean, then we finally had to incorporate the rain in the film and just go with it.
It's
And
come out
so,
so well, actually.
yes, that grey sort of mood that was part of Bombay at that time. So really, that everything fell into place, I would say, for that particular film. Mainly the script.
Absolutely. And what kind of brief were you given? Like, was it something you improvised, or was the character always like that? Because coming from theater, I'm sure you would have, brought certain nuances to it.
Yes, of course. That's my job as an actor, coming from theater or wherever you're coming from. That's what you're supposed to do. You're going to bring a packet along with you and say, ye chalega, ya wo chalega, ya ye chalega. You got to come with some ideas of your own. But those ideas have to reflect what is there in the script. And particularly in a script like this, which does not say too much in terms of dialogue, but whatever it says extremely succinctly and sharply. It makes its point each time. So that's why I really had to focus on the script. And Nidya trusted me. We did a couple of readings and she felt that I was on the right wavelength. There were certain areas that we were not sure of. Then the whole problem of what kind of ailment does she have? Okay, back mein hai, leg mein hai, neck mein hai. Then we decided on the neck because it also gave us the collar and all that immediately established the person as a person with some kind of a problem. So these kind of decisions were taken, of course. And of course, when Shardul and I started reading, then the lines changed because he had written his own stuff. He had made those lines his own in his own way. And so had I. So naturally, those things changed. And when we read together, things changed again. And Nitya was terribly open-minded about it, which is how it should be, because the whole thing is a collaborative process. And and of course, the energy on the set was just phenomenal because everyone was working in these very difficult circumstances and after such a long time. So there was much excitement. Okay, finally, we've got to shoot. But it was tough. It was really tough. I mean, I couldn't identify who the DOP was for a long time because he was doing everything. He was lugging lights and he was also helping set up the mic because it was getting in the way of his camera. And I mean, he was doing everything. Everyone was doing everything. It was quite exciting, I have to say.
Ratna, out of sheer curiosity, I must ask you this, since it's an anthology. So, were you consciously aware about the other 4 segments or, at any point in time that, this is going to be a part of this bigger film? Was that ever a thing that, had a conscious influence on you, or you were just not worried about it? You just focused on Chand Mubarak and that's it, not even giving a thought about the larger scheme of things?
No, all I knew that the larger scheme of things was one about what had happened in the last few months and what it was like to come back to life, as it were. All of us, all the stories were supposed to revolve around that. We also had certain fixed limitations. We had to shoot it in a certain number of days with a certain very tight budget, of course. Budgets are always tight. And with a limited number of people on set. So all those things combined were the same common for all the stories. And then I was really curious, ki kya kya niklega isme se? I didn't know what was going to happen in the other stories. Though I had been offered one of the other stories and I chose Chand Mubarak. But what happened it was a great thrill for me to see Unpaused because I didn't know anything except for Chand Mubarak. So it was really like watching a new thing for me. It was good fun.
Wonderful. One question that naturally comes to my mind is, how do you see OTT, as this upcoming medium of entertainment, as somebody who has been associated with theater for the longest part, with television? You have done some very interesting work in television, films, of course, and now this new medium that has come in, and it is, still in a nascent stage if we compare it to the other, mediums which are far more developed, but yet it has actually opened up a lot of avenues for actors, for creative storytellers. As an actor and as somebody who has been very closely associated with, arts and this process of telling stories? How do you see this?
I think it's a very exciting time. OTT is a format which is very focused on stories and on performances, because you're not selling a, a star on OTT, you're selling a story, an idea. So that shift which has taken place, I find that is wonderful. I'm all for it. And I really, really feel that, of course, eventually OTT will create its own stars. I know. But at this point of time, it's really exciting because you're looking for just for material. So at the moment, it's tremendously exciting. And also, I personally feel that it's a format that's very suitable for our temperament. We like a long story. We are not, temperamentally yet suited to the very quick, short stories that, say, Hollywood films peddle. We still like a story with a little meat on it, not just bones and muscle. So I think it's very, very much up our street. But having said all that, there's always a kahani mein twist, which is we've been here before. For me, when television started, I felt that same buzz then. I really felt that we are on a good thing here. Here's a chance to change in a significant way the way in which we produce stories for entertainment. And it was such an exciting medium. And look what we did with it. Nagins and Sas Bahus. So, I mean, really, इस जो टेलीविजन का पतन हुआ है ना, वो तो मुझे मेरे रोंगटे खड़े कर देता है बाबा. And as the cricket team has known in the past, at least very well, we are very gifted at snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. So we keep doing it over and over again. अपने पैरों पे कुल्हाड़ी मारते जाते हैं. That's what I'm seeing just now. Again, there's so much content and so much similar content. And then they're, of course, peddling a certain kind of content. Because 3 दिन में कहानी लिखो, 3 दिन में तैयार करो सब कुछ. ऐसे नहीं होता यार. You need time. A good show doesn't get created overnight. And it doesn't get created by one person. It's a huge collaborative effort. So we are learning how to collaborate like that. धीरे धीरे सीख रहे हैं. Actually, not so धीरे धीरे. बहुत फटाफट हो रहा है. I mean, look at how many, what are they called? Story rooms that are in existence all around us. So, yeah. So we are learning very quickly. But are we going to learn the right things? And are we going to be willing to work as hard as is necessary to tell a story well, to write a good script? I always tell this story, and I love that story. Stanley Kubrick once went up to Alexander Korda, who was the great British film producer and director, and the cat's whiskers of that time. So Kubrick went up to Korda and said, "Sir, I've got an idea." So Korda says, "Yes, so has my cook. Come with me. Come to me when you have a script." That's it. We have lots of good ideas, but does it translate into a good script? There's the twist.
Ratna ma'am, you have touched upon a very, very important and a potent and a relevant, question, which I also have been, ruminating upon. And I have always wondered what happened to television actually, in the 90s, we had some very interesting things going on. And obviously in between, we keep having some good stuff. But what is it that has actually led to this sudden, or maybe a gradual decline of sorts? Like complete void when it comes to network television. We are nowhere when it comes to the West. Television there, has evolved, at a very, very rapid rate. And today it's probably even surpassed television, at so many levels. The cinematic stories that are coming on television, especially with the superhero movies now coming for the last 10 years, I personally feel that television has, really taken certain leaps over cinematic storytelling, and long form storytelling has really progressed and evolved. But somehow that never really happened in India, even though we have had some great storytellers and we are gifted with actors, great actors. Even writers have been, considerable lot. So no doubt of talent there. Obviously, you talk about they not giving it the due time, not giving it the due attention. Is there
And
any other reason also?
money,
Okay.
money. You've got to invest in development. You've
Hmm.
got to. You can't say my mama's Taya's grandson will write the script and I'll produce it.
Hmm.
And we'll write the script on the set as we go along. That's how it became very soon on television. In fact,
Hmm.
it always was. When I was doing Tara, the script would come just on the day of the shoot. When I was doing Filmi Chakkar, the script would come on the shoot and it would be unperformable, unfunny.
Uh,
So we'd
I
all
could
sit
see you
down.
improvised all the time in Filmi
Oh
Chakkar. I could
man,
see.
all of us, we just sat there at the beginning of, if you had a 3 day schedule, the first day was almost entirely rewriting the script and making the gags work. And for that, I will always, hats off to Satish Shah. He really
Hmm.
got after everyone and got them to come up with things. And, he himself suggested so much. That thing got made in spite of the writer and the director, I have to say. Writers, whatever they were, and the director. It was a lot of contribution from a lot of other energies that made that work. So, yeah. And Idhar Udhar, for example, it was something that we all were doing for the first time. We were doing this kind of sitcom stuff for the first time, and we had absolutely no idea how to go about it. I knew nothing about acting in comedy. Though
Hmm.
I have to say that Idhar Udhar was really the best thing that ever happened to me because I discovered comedy. Till then, I'd always thought of myself as a serious actress. I'm going to have to do really dramatic parts. But thank God for Idhar Udhar. Thank God for Anand Mahindru. And thank God for Sunita. Because that just rescued me and made me into a human being. And, not just a dramatic persona in my own head. It was fantastic. It was so liberating. And it's been the best thing, as I said. So, when it came to Filmi Chakkar, but even in Idhar Udhar, which was so शुरुआत का, so nascent, मतलब बिल्कुल शुरू के दिनों में, the director didn't know, the cameraman didn't know how to light it. We kept reshooting and reshooting. It was crazy. We shot one episode over 8 days.
Wow.
Yeah, one 23-minute episode over 8 days. It was crazy. It was just completely crazy. The first few days, of course. Then, of course, we fell into a pattern. We couldn't continue like that. The producer couldn't have afforded it. But then it came into place, and then it really became interesting. We were learning on the job, but the writing was coming to us. You got a script. Then, of course, you improvised because everything depends on the timing and on the interplay between the two actors. So,
Hmm.
all that happened on set, of course.
Hmm.
But there was a lot of meat in the writing. But not so in Filmi Chakkar. Gone. So that was a crazy
Hmm.
experience. But tremendous learning there for me of just the basic skills required in film and television acting. I wasn't very good at that. How
Hmm.
to come to the mark, how to take the light, how to make it look organic. And I have always watched films and liked that kind of performance, but I didn't know how to do it. So that was great learning for me of the practicalities of how to make a scene work.
Ma'am, could you delineate a little for the layman, when you say that you learned, and I understand facing the camera, but if you could, break it down a little, what was it like, when you first made this transition from theater to, television and obviously then to the movies? What was it like facing camera, for somebody who has always performed to that gallery?
For me, the two have not been so separate.
Uh-huh.
I come from within the business, as it were. My mother was an actress. She was a
Hmm.
theater actress and later a
Hmm.
film actress.
Of course, yeah.
So, and
Dina ji,
Dina ji.
legendary. Yeah, yeah.
So I practically grew up backstage in the theater or in rehearsal rooms. My mother took me everywhere, thank God. And then later on film shoots, I used to tag along. So the camera was not an unknown quantity
Uh-huh. Hmm.
for me. And in fact, when I was very young, when I was in my first year of college, ISRO Mumbai was extremely active, and a few interesting people were working there and trying to do interesting storytelling uh, for uh, for क्या कहते हैं, for telecast on the ISRO network, which
Oh,
went to the Kheda Jilla of Gujarat.
uh-uh.
So a whole lot of little educational things were done for television, ISRO network. And I acted in quite a few of them, or I did backstage. So I hung around those ISRO studios also quite a bit. And then I did little bits on television once in a while, for example, Mathemagic show. There was a show long, long
Ah,
ago on
yeah,
television.
yeah, I have, yeah,
Mathemagic,
yeah. Telebrands and all those.
not Telebrands. This was
Okay, not Telebrands.
Mathemagics.
Okay,
This was like
before
a
that.
mathematic
Okay,
quiz based on
okay,
mathematics. And
okay.
that was one of the first things Ronnie Screwvala and Zarina Screwvala and their company
Ah, oh.
did.
UTV even before, I think.
UTV, that's right. They were UTV or just before UTV. So that I did a few episodes with them. So
Mm.
I did a lot of little bits like that. So coming in
Mm.
front of the camera was
Was not a
not
problem.
a
Mm.
terrible issue for me.
Okay, okay.
But what to do with myself as an actor? That's a different thing altogether. I
Mm.
may not be embarrassed about being in front of the camera or
Mm.
self-conscious, but how to communicate well with the camera. That's something that you have to learn. You got to learn how to be aware of the camera, where it is, and then
Mm.
forget about it. Because only then will you look like you are in the present of what is happening. If I'm in a scene where I'm serving dinner to my husband and we are in the middle of a fight, I cannot ever be unaware of the camera and of how I am with reference to it.
Mm.
But after a point, I have to forget about it. And I have to relate to this human being sitting opposite me and talk to him and interact with him
Mm.
or her or whatever. Right? So, so these are the kind of things that one learns, and how to make it smooth, how to come to your mark without making it look like, now I come to my place. Little details like that, which everyone picks up along the way. But, I mean, it's embarrassing if it has to be pointed out to you too often. So it was
Mm.
good that I got a chance to do it. And someone like Satish, who was very good at pointing these things out and, helping me how to find my way in an awkward situation, because my comic timing was not great.
Mhm.
So Filmi Chakkar gave me a chance to really improve my comic timing. And I've always said that Satish was greatly responsible for that.
Ma'am, I've read a lot about your willingness and your keenness for rehearsals. In your interviews, you often talk about, and of course, Nasir sir also, has always emphasized on rehearsals. Like for somebody starting out, how would you put this across? What makes these rehearsals so very important? When at the end of the day, there's a lot of improvisation anyway going to happen at the end of the day. Why do you think that these rehearsals are very, very pivotal to the actual process?
That's a very, very interesting question. Um, okay, let's break it up like this. Coming to terms, to grips with a script is spread out over several stages, as it were. The first stage, of course, is your own personal reading of the script. That is also part of the rehearsal process, according to me. You just read the script again and again and again. The script is like a detective story. It
Mm-hmm.
tells you everything you need to know about your character, but it's not going to tell it to you in one neat line. Hopefully, bad script will tell it to you in one neat line, but a good script will not. A good
Mm.
script will let you discover aspects of this character as you go along, and the character unfolds in a script. For example, in, say, Kapoor and Sons, you don't really know. You come into the story of my character where you realize something is amiss. Things are not good, but you don't know what they are.
Mm.
And then things escalate. First, it's the husband's infidelity. Then it's the son's discovery. And then it's the other son's rejection. And then, of course, it's the death. So all these sort of stages are revealed to you as you go along in the film. It's not laid out blatantly for you. So for me, the process of reading the script was a process of discovery. Who is she? Why is she sounding like this in the first scene? What is the problem? What has happened before? So what is there in the lines? They are arguing about money. So there's a problem with the money. So what is the problem with the money? And then once you get that clue, then you build on it. Then you imagine their life up to that point. How they met, how they married, what was it like? How was their money and always an issue? How did they deal with it earlier? Now what is the problem? Etc., etc. So you start creating a story for yourself based on what is there in the script. And then you bump up. So then you get the next shock, the husband's infidelity. So again, then now you have to build up a story for that. Okay, what did he do? Yes, right. That day he went off and told me that he's going to his shop. But when I called the shop, he had... So then you create that a second set of story for yourself, and so on and so forth. So now this is your own work. This is not work that
Absolutely.
You're supposed to do in the presence of others.
Yeah. And not even there in the script, probably. You're writing these backstories for yourself. You're writing these, these small notes.
And all you're saying is to yourself is, why is she saying this at this point of time? What has happened before? What is going to happen after? Etc. So that's how you try and build up how your character is going to behave over the span of the film. Now, the span of the film is never going to be shot in chronological order. You're never going to do that. I mean, it's a rare and blissful occasion, one that I have not had. जहां आपको फिल्म उसी तरह शूट करने को मिलेगी जैसे कहानी जाती है, तो कभी नहीं होता वैसा. So you are all over the place. So for yourself, you have to build up your way of doing these scenes. So you rehearse with yourself a lot to come to terms with why you are saying it and how you're going to say it and what you are going through at that point of time. What has happened before this? What is this person going to do about it? Can she walk out of this marriage at this point? No, she's got children. She's got society to think about. No, she can't. So what can she do? And so on and so forth, right? So you build up all these things for yourself so that when you come to work for the first reading with other actors, you already come with some life in yourself. You already come somewhat equipped as that character. And then you hear the other people. And suddenly everything that you have thought about changes because they are doing it in completely different ways from how you imagined it. So again, then you readapt. That's where the rehearsal becomes extraordinarily important. How are you going to play off each other? How are you going to time what you are saying with what that person is saying? And in the process of doing that, are you able to find something new, something you had never thought of? So Rajat might do something there at that moment, which I hadn't imagined. And I must be able to react right there and then in the way my character is supposed to react. So I've got to be prepared. I've got to be in that sense for that time, that character.
I think Kapoor and Sons has got so many wonderful sequences. For example, that scene with the plumber, that I think has to be one of the greatest scenes, in Hindi cinema, at least for the last 10, 20 years. And I see a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work, and a lot of improvisation happening in that scene.
Yes.
But I remember...
And a lot of luck, because there was some other actor who was supposed to do that role. And then something happened and the shooting shifted and then he wasn't free on that day. So he couldn't come, and this young other actor was brought in who was absolutely perfect. He was just so perfect. And sure, we rehearsed it many, many times, first just with the lines and then with the moves to find ways of getting, all the timing right. And then, of course, we had this wonderful cameraman, Jeff, who walked with us throughout, and Shakun walking next to him. So it was really like a choreographed dance. Somebody had
Absolutely.
to move out of the way. Somebody had to come in with a cutter at the right time. Somebody had to bring in a light at the right. It was really choreographed. It was so
The
beautiful.
mise en scène is really, it speaks for itself. It's so
Absolutely.
powerful. Yeah.
And Shakun really wanted that. He wanted a completely fluid camera. And now I've seen so many fluid camera kind of films. Of course, the great Robert Altman and Woody Allen does it so beautifully.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the great Jansko, much, much before that, whose camera just never stayed still. It just moved and moved and moved. And yet, Shakun really took me by surprise when I saw the film finally. I sort of went, wow, he got it.
In fact, I wanted to ask this question as a performer. When you are doing these things in segments, you're doing it out of chronological order. As an actor, how do you keep a check on the consistency of the performance? Do you constantly check your stuff on the edit table, or do you do it only at the end, or do you like to, after a shoot, you want to go to the monitor and see have you given or hit the right notes, or you like to leave it till the end, let the editor and director sort it out?
Thank God I'm only an actor. I don't have to worry about all these things. This is not part of my business. I leave it to people who know. The director is the final person who knows if he's a good director or she's a good director. Alankrita saw Lipstick Under My
Oh,
Burkha in this way.
wow.
She was,
Yeah.
of course, things changed. Of course, we all contributed a lot, but Alankrita knew the balance she wanted. So that is the final word, and that is her job. She has to be, and that's what she's there for. She's to guide me. If she feels I'm going off sur, if I'm going
Hmm.
off key in any way, then it's her job to tell me. But my job is to keep a check of my own continuity, not only the physical continuity, but my
Mhm, mhm,
emotional continuity.
mhm,
And again, my script and my rehearsal with myself is the best bet. So I keep going
mhm,
back to the script. Before I'm shooting this, what has happened before? What's coming later? What is the balance I want for this scene? What tone does this scene need? How high can one go? How does one top it after that? Etc. So these are the things that you decide as you go along, and you keep reading your script. It's not put away once you've learnt your lines. Not at all. Never. The script is with you all the time. I cannot understand actors who ask for sides. Every morning you get one little sheet of paper. Think of the hundreds and thousands of trees that are cut for that. La hol vela kuvat. And on top of that, what does it say about this person who's coming on to a day's job without any idea of what he or she is supposed to be doing? Hello? Is that fair? Particularly if you're taking, sackfuls back. It's not fair. So that's my job as an actor, to keep working at my, and a lot of the times you don't even get a part which gives you the chance to do that. I'm sorry, but
mm.
Mubarka, for example, didn't really give me all that much of an
Ah,
opportunity to
okay.
dig my teeth into a character with great depth. No, there it was a different preparation required. How do
Mm,
I belt it out
mm.
for the requirement of this film? Because
I
this,
think it came out well, this idea of this elder sister who is very, very authoritative, and your chemistry with Pavanji,
yeah,
that for me stood out.
yes. And it was wonderful because, I'm partly Punjabi myself. My
Yeah,
dad was my dad was Punjabi. So I have always been wanting to do a Punjabi character. So I enjoyed that Punjabiyat. And I've seen my buas behave like that. And, I mean, that whole Punjabi mood is very much part of my own life and my own experience. And I love it. I absolutely love
are
it.
you also someone in real life who demands this kind of authority? Because it looked very, very, you looked full of grace and dignity, and somebody who would not take no nonsense kind of a personality. Are you like that, or you are a little open to playfulness, especially with younger people around?
I'm certainly not like that character. I mean, I'm not so full of myself for sure.
Of course.
I seem to be a figure of authority. I only get parts where there are authoritative women, who
Mm-hmm.
are going to stride into rooms, and I suppose Maya Sarabhai is responsible for that. Well, whatever it is. But I personally would hate to be a person like that.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine taking yourself so seriously. I don't like it. I like to look at a thing from various points of view.
Mm.
I don't look at my work as an actor only as a way of furthering my career, or getting to be the best actor in the world or anything. No, I think my work as an actor, one, because it gives me great pleasure, is something that I want to do. I really enjoy it. I want to be other people. And two, it gives me a chance to connect with all kinds of people. Of course, through the script, because I get to act all kinds of wonderful characters, but also on the set. I meet so many different kinds of people. I travel to so many different places, and it enriches my life. It makes me understand life more. It makes me a fuller person. I like that. I like that socializing aspect of movies, but I don't like it at the cost of work.
Mm.
Normally, on a set, that socializing takes high priority. Work takes second priority, which I
Mm.
think is wrong.
Mm.
But the socializing through work is the best way to know a person.
Mm.
On the Sarabhai set, I did not know Rajesh or Rupali or Sumit. We met on the set for the first time when we were doing our first readings together. And it was such a pleasure to discover them as people and to develop a friendship with them, which has lasted to this day. We can call up each other at any time of night or day,
How
asking for anything.
beautiful.
Yes, and it's quite extraordinary. I think that is a very important part of my work as an actress. And in the theater, that is what is the biggest blessing, the sense of being part of a community in the theater that we do. I'm not saying all theater is like that. I don't see, uh, the commercial theater people behaving in the same way
Mm.
as we amateurs do. And I call myself an amateur in the best possible way. An
Wow.
amateur as a person who wants to keep discovering nonstop. I'm never going to arrive. So and we are very professional at what we are doing. We do it to the best of our abilities. But we are doing it because we are passionate about it. And therefore, that gives us the dum to carry on. I don't know whether commercial theatre people have that same luxury. And don't forget, it's very much situation in the West. I mean, if you see the kind of commercial theatre actors in the West, and I have had occasion to work with some of them, people who go to work, who go to act to the theatre as a job. At 9 o'clock, you've got to be there. At 6 o'clock, I'm going. My time's up. I'm going to switch off. I'm done. That kind of, they take it professionally, fully professionally. I'm glad I'm not that kind of professional. I'm glad I got the luxury to be this kind of a theatre worker. We do plays when we feel like it. We don't do plays every night. We are not in it for the money. So we are not, we perform in small spaces. We perform in intimate spaces. We perform plays that we like, regardless of how much they are going to cost and how much money they're going to make. So these are things that give us great freedom to do what we want. And it's been a wonderful ride, that one.
No, I have been lucky to have actually interacted with a few people from Motley. Vivan, of course, is a friend. Then Rakesh Chaturvedi ji,
Ah,
Ahana, I have interviewed. So I have learned about these things which you touch upon so well from them, and I think it reflects in their work. When it goes beyond the medium of theater also, in your
sure.
work also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the bonus of being an actor. Of course, getting to play all these wonderful parts, things that you'd never do. Who would imagine that I would be a Rani in Rajasthan? I had such a ball being Rani Ma. I've seen so many of these Rani Mas floating around in Rajasthan. It was a great chance to be that. My favorite, of course, was this lovely little Rani Ma. We were shooting for Mirch Masala many, many, many years
Ah,
ago.
okay, the Ketan Mehta classic.
Ketan Mehta's film, Mirch Masala. We were
I think
shooting
in
it.
that Deena ji is also there, Supriya
Yes,
ji is
and
also
Supriya is
there,
there,
Nasir
and
sir is
Nasir
also
is
there.
also there, and
Yeah,
Om is also there. It's all family.
yeah,
Everyone's
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
What
Mohan
a
Gokhale
film.
is there. Benjamin Gilani is there. I mean, it was just a happy family film. So when we were shooting for Mirch Masala, just outside of Rajkot is a small village or little principality called Churu. And we were shooting there. It was dusty. It was hot. The mirchis were all over the place, and everyone was sneezing, and it was crazy. And it was bright sun shining. And there was this lady standing in the crowd. Huh? And I was supposed to be entering. So I was also waiting in the crowd, waiting for my cue to go through. And this lady who had a chhatri held over her head, wearing a cheap nylon sari and rubber chappals. So she turns to me and she says, Namaste ji, I am Her Highness Churu.
Wow.
And it was so cute. She was so sweet. I mean, imagine having to introduce herself. Once upon a time, there would have been a whole retinue of servants going, Maharani Padhar Rahe Hain, or something like that. And now suddenly she's having to introduce herself. I'm Her Highness
Beautiful.
Churu.
So
So yeah,
beautiful.
I mean, how many people you meet like that along the way? It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I wish you could play so many different kinds of characters, but still.
Speaking of my favorite characters of yours, I must take you back again to Lipstick Under My Burkha. And, the dialogues that you speak, they flow like poetry. Every time, you come on the screen, even in the trailer, I was hooked. So what was the magic? Was it just the script? Was it just you, probably rehearsing and a lot of improvisation? Or was it something that happened which was probably, beyond you, sort of a divine intervention or something? Because it really is magical, every time, you speak about Rosie and, those desires, and it's so strong and powerful and relevant.
So I would say it's a mixture of all the above, whatever you said. Certainly it was the script. And in fact, it was very interesting because Alankrita had written Rosie's speech, her voiceover, in a particular way. And then after that, uh, after she put the whole film together, she wanted to change it, and she changed it quite a bit. And suddenly it had a completely different mood, and it worked very nicely for the film. And then, of course, it was the script, the part. It was so unusual. A older woman as a sexual being, a woman as a sexual being, at least in the film. That's what was really interesting, that here were four different women who you were looking at them as sexual beings also. They were women also, but they were also sexual beings. And it was so taken for granted in the film. No production was made out of it. And it was an exploration of what it means for Uma to be, Usha to be that awakening at that age, and that letting yourself go. I mean, that really excited me tremendously in terms of how to imagine this character and imagine her life before this, when she was. And there were scenes where which were dialogue which was cut off and all that, where there was a description of her relationship with the husband, which Alankrita saw as a very warm and lovely relationship, cut short too soon because the husband died very early, and then the responsibility that came on her, etc., etc. And then, of course, the scenes uh, as they were shot, that was interesting. The people, again, were all interesting, very believable characters. The two nephews and their wives, for example, it really helped me to slip into this as a family. They looked like a family that I knew and I could be part of. So all those things, those bachas, that house, everything helped to bring it all together. And then, of course, my imagination and my own training as an actor. I know how to use my voice. I know how to make it sound the way Alankrita wanted it to sound like. And yeah, what else? I mean, it just was such a wonderful occasion. I feel blessed.
I think it was Ahana, probably who told me that, during the film's Tokyo premiere, when the film was screened, even though those people had no understanding of, India and, as such, our social cultural milieu and all that. And yet, there was, a whole craze. Everybody was so excited. Got so involved. And after the film ended, everybody, surrounded Alankrita and, Ahana. And probably, I think, if Plabita was also there. I don't remember it correctly, but that was really, really something that really inspired me, because the universality of cinema, even when you are not able to relate to a certain civilization, or you don't have that kind of connect. But cinema is able to, break those barriers. And as
Entirely.
empowering that film was, probably, in Bhopal or Mumbai, it was also in Tokyo, or in Mumbai for that
Yes.
matter, everywhere,
And and
universal.
and in Miami,
US, yeah,
Florida.
yeah,
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 I
yeah.
mean, the kind of stories that Alakrita told about that, the kind of
Hmm.
responses she got from women in the audiences in those places, phenomenal. It's a story that seems to work across cultures. It's a really strong female experience of the world. This is how things work for us, you know. It's hard. It's really hard
Hmm.
for women. I'm a very privileged woman. I can't go by my experience and my example at all. Being a woman in the world is hard. I was just reading the other day about what it is like to be a lawmaker in Australia, a female lawmaker in their legislative assembly, the kind of comments that are thrown around. Really, it is hard. And very interestingly, a lot of women came up to me afterwards, uh, at least three or four. One woman, while I was shopping for my groceries, she stopped me and she said, I have to ask you this question. Why such a depressing ending? Why could
Uh-huh.
nothing have been better for them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was even made by a woman. Why such a
Mm-hmm.
depressing ending?
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel her. I could feel her very strongly.
Hmm.
She wanted, really wanted a sense of
Hmm.
hope.
Hmm.
So I turned to her and I said that, can you think of what the ending could have been? A truthful ending. What could it have been? And she thought for a bit and said, no, I know, but I wish there was a hopeful ending. That's true. We all wish that there was a way out of this situation, but we know that it's not going to be easy. It has not been easy up to now, and it'll not be easy in the future also. That was the mistake my generation made. We thought that because we've made the laws, now everything's cool. Sab theek hai. Ho gaya sabka kaam. But look at what we are seeing around us today now. It hasn't happened. So we are still struggling with how to make an equitable world come about at every level, certainly at the level of gender. So a film like Lipstick is a very, very strong, क्या कहते हैं, support in this whole conversation. More so because it affects the men also. I heard that
Absolutely.
I heard it after Thappad also. Many male friends came up to me and said, I'm so glad this film was made, you know. ये
Hmm.
बहुत जरूरी है बनाना. And similarly about Lipstick. So there are a lot of us out there who want to be decent. I think most of us want to be decent, but we are being governed by a bunch that's, and ideas that are pushing us in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
So, and I'm afraid entertainment contributes a great deal to those ideas. You know,
Absolutely.
and I mean,
I think at least it has started a discourse, which was not there
yes, yes,
earlier.
yes. And though, of course, the film industry doesn't like it very much because what they do is Munna Michael was released in the same week as Lipstick Under My Burkha. And it was considered to be a flop. A lot of money was spent on it, I suppose. So that's why they were very upset. And Lipstick Under My Burkha had a opening collection of 18 crore or something like that. First 3 days, which was unheard of. We weren't expecting it. We were jumping with joy. And when the trade magazines came out, all they said was Munna Michael disaster. Not one line about how well Lipstick Under My Burqa had done. Not
Hmm.
one single line. It was ignored. So, yeah, that's true. The small film has to fight many, many battles in many, many ways. But my other favorite story about Lipstick Under My Burqa is that somebody I know, I met, told me she loved the film and all that, and she had taken her father along to see it.
Mhm.
And the father sat very silently throughout the film. And afterwards, when they came home, he was very quiet. He was thoughtful. He didn't uh, yell at the daughter or say anything. They didn't have any conversation. But obviously, the daughter realized that he was thinking about it. And then the neighbor came home in the evening and said, "Tum log picture dekhne gaye the? Kaun si picture dekhne gaye the?" So the father stopped and said, "Munna Michael." He couldn't bring himself to say, "Lipstick under my burqa."
Wow.
है ना?
Wow.
है ना? कितनी मुश्किल बात,
Amazing.
कितना मुश्किल है ये, बहुत मुश्किल है.
Wow.
So much that needs to be done inside our hearts before we can change. And definitely art helps in that. Therefore, whatever the problems may be, whatever the क्या कहते हैं, shortfalls, shortcomings of all that we produce, and there are many shortcomings, as we all know, but in spite of all of it, it is going to be a record of our times. And it will be something that will make the generations who come after think about some things at least.
I'm
And
sure.
the generations who come after will want a more equitable world. It's inevitable. This is the dying gasp of an older civilization, a civilization based on hierarchy and on privilege. ये सब जा रहा है, ये कूड़ा है. And जाते जाते मरेगा ही. It's going to stink up the atmosphere. What to do? It's garbage. They've managed to get rid of one little bit of garbage in America. So let's see.
Ratna ma'am, before we end this, I must ask you about Jayesh Bhai Jordar, because that's the upcoming thing, and whatever you can tell us about that, do tell.
Well, whatever I can tell you about it. I can
Because
tell
I
you
know.
about, yes, all kinds of confidentiality thingies. And rightly so, because it's an interesting story. And it's a film that will turn on story. That's what's important about it. Of course, Ranveer is a great presence, and Ranveer is a bundle of energy and lights up most of the scenes he's in. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I haven't seen him do his other number, except for the little scenes that we have done together. And it's been great fun shooting with Baman, who I've worked with before. So that was lovely. And again, a whole new bunch of youngsters playing the parts. Shalini Pandey, who's playing the daughter-in-law, lovely young girl, Diksha, and so many other people, and a new director and a whole new team. So another occasion to make friends and to find out very interesting people, um, meet them, know more about them, watch them work. And quite honestly, I think I'm really looking forward to it because the story is interesting. I think the performances will work. And what's the creation of that space, I think is very good. It's sort of mirch masala without the grime. It's a prettified version, a little bit like that. But the look of the film, I think, is going to be quite gorgeous. The art direction was spectacular. I really thought this was just so beautiful, and the costuming was very, very interesting. So all the elements seem to be in place.
Wow.
तो अभी बस देखना है वो
I
पुड़िया
just can't wait now to watch it.
You are not
It's got
alone.
me even more. Yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen anything of it. I dubbed also for a very little bit. So I
Okay.
have no idea. I haven't heard the music of it. So it's going to be like watching it for the first time, like any average person in the audience.
Thank you. It's been a most enlightening and a most fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you so much for discussing these things at length in great detail, and also for getting us very excited about Jayesh Bhai Jordar.
Thank you. And well, hopefully we shall meet again and talk again.
Looking forward, ma'am. Bye
Looking
for now.
forward. Bye
Take
bye.
care, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.